The next 25 minutes, I'm going to discuss about the prosperity that has been witnessed in Varanasi in the last 10 years during the Modi reign in the constituency, but more importantly about the welfare of the people, the beneficiaries, the number of schemes and projects that have been launched by the Prime Minister and the benefits that have been received by the people of Varanasi. Let's start this discussion. And I'm being joined by Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, specific focus about the benefits, whether it is about the Awas Yojana, we talk about Ujjwala Yojana and the LPG cylinders, we talk about toilets being built, we talk about Mudra Yojana, we talk about Swanidhi Yojana, Anna Yojana. This has been made possible on a national level. But particularly when we take a look at the numbers, and those numbers are being put out on the screen for us, there are over 1 lakh toilets that have been built in Varanasi. There are over 1 lakh taps that have been put up in Varanasi. There are as many as 28,000 gas connections that have been provided to households. There are 60 Jan Aushadhi Kendras that have been built in Varanasi. There have been over 10 lakh beneficiaries of the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana in Varanasi. There are over 4 lakh 50,000 beneficiaries for Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Then we have more than 49,000 people who have received benefits because of the Swanidhi Yojana. There is the Kaushal Vikas Yojana, 48,000 and more. So these numbers tell a story, and nothing can refute that. No number of opposition and criticism that comes from politicians and political pundits can refute the fact that there has development and welfare that has reached the people of Varanasi. Can you hear me, Abhijit?
Yes, sorry. So, the thing is, there will always be a refutation of this because, it used to be very fashionable to sit in drawing rooms in Delhi and discuss how, larger meta concepts of how the country is being governed, when in fact there was zero delivery happening on the ground. And what you ended up having was a model where there'd be, hoary talk of, secularism and democracy, etc., when there was essentially vote rigging happening on the ground, stuffing of ballot boxes, Gunda Raj on the ground, etc. People tend to forget Gunda Raj was across UP. People talk about Gunda Raj in Bihar. They never talk about the kind of Gunda Raj you had in UP as well. Now, number one, what has happened is, because that last mile of delivery, which Rajiv Gandhi always used to claim only 5% actually reaches the people, 95% gets eaten up in corruption or wherever, that is finally reaching people on the ground. This is undeniable. And if you want to see how it stands up to scrutiny, just look at the votes that the BJP keeps getting. Last election, we actually had Muslim women voting. This time, we've had a very funny episode where a lady has come out and claimed that she, because she was apparently given the VVPAT slip and it showed the lotus, she claimed that, oh, no, I actually pressed the cycle button and I got the lotus symbol and this is a proof of election rigging. Well, it's exactly the same as the last election where Muslim women are quietly going, they'll say SP in the public, but they'll go and push the button for the BJP in private. That's what happened the last time. That's presumably what's happening this time as well. So we should be very clear about this. But, one scheme you left out, which I think was the most important scheme, which, several of my employees have benefited from as well, has been Ayushman Bharat. They've had operations and things like that, and the entire amount has been covered by the government. So for the first time in India, we've got, not say Western standards, I mean, we're still nowhere near that, but we've got some level of health security of the most vulnerable sections of society. They guaranteed toilets. They guaranteed health care today. And remember, the toilets today are actual wet toilets. There is plumbing in them. There is a whole connotation to toilets that has come about. So this is a huge improvement in health. You combine this with the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and things like that. It has been very significant. It has affected and touched everybody on the ground. And the best proof of the pudding is the eating, in this case, the election.
I absolutely agree with you. And let's get in Jaijit Bhattacharya. And Jaijit, the importance of focusing on the welfare and development of the people, whether it is about their education or it is about employment or giving them good health, providing those toilets for hygiene, and more than that, the dignity of the women, providing homes under the name of women. This allows for development and welfare of the people, and only once that the people of a state, a constituency, a country are empowered, can there be prosperity and economic growth.
Absolutely. Let me build on top of what Abhijit was talking about, is that did we as a nation ever hear about a program for toilets for all? We didn't. Did we hear about Swachh Bharat before? We didn't. There was a slogan on Garibi Hatao, which was, a usual political slogan. And because, toilets is not something that the Western media or the Western academicians understand, or Swachh Bharat is something that they don't understand, it was not part of our requirements. And so our requirements, even for the vulnerable sections, were dictated by what the West thinks is important for us, to the extent that when the Swachh Bharat was being rolled out, or Toilets for All was being rolled out, these became memes and butts of jokes for comedians all over the world, because they don't understand what we need. Now, what the transformation has happened is addressing the issues that we need, and the word that you used was dignity. People want to live with dignity. That's part of freedom. If we don't have dignity, we do not have freedom. The intervention that has happened in Varanasi and in many other places, the entire country, are at two folds. One is a direct benefit transfer, which is what we have been talking about. People have been given the house in their hands. People have been given toilets in their hands. When COVID happened, people who were in the vulnerable sections were given 2,000 rupees per month in their hands in the bank account, right? So these are direct benefit transfer, which was helping the individuals, the vulnerable sections of the society. The second level of intervention was an infrastructural level intervention. For example, the Vande Bharat trains going into Varanasi, from the Dashamegha Ghat right up to the marketplace, the entire cleanup that happened in Varanasi led to tourism coming in, led to more people coming in. Otherwise, the view was that it's a dirty place. Why do you want to go to Varanasi? We'll only go to Varanasi when we have to do the rituals of those who have departed. However, now it's become a tourism place at any point in time in the year, which has led to more jobs happening, more employment opportunities. So these infrastructure build up at a larger level has led to people getting becoming self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So when people have a home, the next question is now, where do I get my living? Those questions are also being addressed. So it is a largely a 360-degree view where vulnerable sections have been taken care of by all these programs, including Ayushman Bharat, while there is also being a larger structural push, which is going to give jobs to people as long as they are able to get skills for the same.
Absolutely. Gargi, a very important point that has been made by Jaijit, and that used to be the perception. Talking about, when the Prime Minister, from the ramparts of the Red Fort, during a Independence Day speech, comes out and speaks about sanitary napkins. He tells the women of the country that, listen, the sanitary napkins are being provided to you free of cost. There are these vending machines that will allow you to get these sanitary pads. This is about hygiene at the basic level. This is about, saving the lives of women. This is about, once again, a topic that is taboo in the country being spoken about. Similar was the case with toilets. People would not want to have toilets in their home because traditionally it is something, toilets are something that needs to be away from the home. So away from the home, then while the men can deal with them, we'll deal with it, the women would have to go to far off places, to the jungles, to the bushes, and not just about, they would have to be concerned about their safety. They might get raped over there, but also about hygiene issues. They may get a number of STDs. So these are problems that have to be taken into account. Prime Minister Narendra Modi did that, and not just in the speeches that he has made in the country, he has implemented them, he has spoken to women, he has, in fact, the rallies that at this point of time he is holding has thousands and thousands of women who have been brought in, because they tell a story by themselves of the development that has happened, for the benefits that they have gotten. But even when he is talking to international leaders, when he is going abroad, he is telling at the United Nations, he is talking to the United States and the people that, listen, in my country, there never used to be toilets. And now the transformation is such that there are crores that have been built and people are benefiting from it, that there is development. There are these many number of people have been lifted out of poverty. There is per capita income that at this point of time has increased for individuals living in our country. So it becomes important. While the world may snigger at us, look down upon us, that listen, what are you even talking about? Are you the Prime Minister of the country talking about toilets and he's talking about sanitary pads? But that's exactly what he did. And that's the revolution that he brought into the country for the people that it mattered. And the world looked up, took notice and applauded Prime Minister and the BJP's initiative.
Thank you for inviting. Just now the panelist before me has already stated, and I'll repeat, yes, we see the overall development. And when you talk about toilet, why the others look down upon it? Because the others whom you are talking about, whether from Congress or other parties, they are the elites sitting in their air-conditioned echo chambers, and Prime Minister is a person, for 15 years, he led a life of a pracharak. So he went from one village to another. So doing so, he realized the problem at the ground level. He realized that women need dignity, and that's why he could speak about the toilets which nobody else could even think of. And not only he could speak about it, he implemented it. 12 crores toilets been given irrespective of caste, creed and religion. And he always speaks about Vikas Vi, Virasat Vi, because both are interconnected. I spoke in the previous show also that how we have gone through a mental decolonization. When a nation takes pride in its heritage, how it grows, he believes that our people should be prosperous. Because when he, as a Hindu also, when we see a Hindu resurgence, we worship the goddess of wealth, Lakshmi. So he wanted the people to prosper. And because of that, today 25 crores of people have come out of the poverty level, the below poverty level. And let's not forget the digital divide that used to be there. The digital divide has blurred. Today you go to a pani puri wala, a cobbler, everybody has a Google Pay, a full flower seller. You say ki 20 rupees, 100 rupees, nobody has. You have to just scan and pay. And even when people came from G20, the foreigners, they were surprised to see this. How could it happen? Because of 55 crore Jan Dhan account. So the economic development, and when we talk about Hindu resurgence and temples coming out, the reclaiming of our past, yes, we are reclaiming our glory when the Ram temple was constructed, the corridor created. But let's not forget the economy that a temple brings. With crores of tourists coming, imagine the small tea seller, he must have flourished. The small restaurant owner, he must have flourished. Even people who are having their houses, because the hotels and guest houses were so much full that people started giving their homes for stay-home facility. So the flourishing, so it all goes hand in hand. So today we can say, yes, today we are the 5th largest economy also in GDP wise, and yes, we are proud to be Hindu also, because this has really contributed. The temple economy also has contributed. Yes.
Abhijit, then can we talk about the broader theme of how the world is having the perception, is perceiving India and perceiving the BJP government today? Because can this be a Modi model that is desirable for countries that are smaller than India? Whether it is about the vaccine implementation, the vaccination of crores of people, whether it is about, like I said, the UPI that has at this point of time reached every single household across the country of 140 crore people, and now the same model being, the same trend being implemented, replicated in other parts of the world as well. Now, if so the experiment that works on such a large scale, and India is the country with the population which is the maximum across the globe. So if it works for India, that model will definitely fit for any other country in the world.
Not necessarily. There is the pitfalls of isomorphic mimicry. And this is, something the Congress used to do a lot. They believed that a scheme used to work in, say, Germany or France or the UK or America, and therefore it'll work here. And it seldom ever did. There were these IMF and World Bank schemes that their experts used to come across, where they fundamentally believe they know more about the country than you. And you have to take on their schemes. There's a very famous highway in Nigeria that a British Prime Minister insisted on for apparently very significant kickbacks to Labour. It was an 8-lane highway, completely not suited to Nigeria. In those days, there used to be, wire phones. Every mile there used to be a telephone out there. And today, it's a ghost road. It fell out of disrepair within 1 or 2 years because, well, nobody could use it. So, each country has to develop it according to its own unique genius. The problem has been that we always used to do cut, copy, paste models, which did not suit us, number one. And number two, the policy making classes, they used to look for validation from Western newspapers, Western think tanks. So, they were kind of almost in debt to them. They were sort of in this validation cycle with them, where the talking points of, New York or London had to be implemented in India. This is why, if you go back to coverage of India during the 1971 war or the 1965 war with Pakistan, the governments used to be intensely hostile to India. But the press used to, have this very, oh my God, these are slightly backward children. They need the white man's civilizing touch kind of attitude towards us. And, they're a fledgling democracy, though we were really not a very a liberal democracy in those days. They need our assistance and our help. Today, you'll see the exact reverse happening, because those same, the soirees, the chattering classes of New York and Washington, D.C., no longer feel welcome in Delhi anymore. But the governments love us because they can do business out here. Right. So what Modi has done at that international level is he's made us much more compatible with the governments, but he's completely removed those chattering classes whose only agenda really was to sell newspapers. This is number two. Number three, equally what has happened is, this kind of modeling that we've seen, providing the lowest of the low in terms of income with the basic necessities of life, even that has been very specific to India. When the toilet scheme was implemented, I remember when he spoke about tampons at his first address on Independence Day in 2014, I think it was.
Sanitary pads.
All these left-wing sanitary pads. All these left-wing outlets came out with why sanitary pads are not good. They're not really Indian and they will lead to infection, etc., etc. There was one that ran a thing about why building toilets in rural areas was a bad idea and open defecation was much more sanitary and hygienic. We have actually gone to things like this, where and these kind of policies would be endorsed by the New York Times and Washington Post. It was seen as cultural relativity or whatnot. So you've gone through all of this, and you've had real delivery of services on the ground, which is also, remember, like you pointed out, and Jayajit Bhattacharya pointed that out very clearly. It has led to economies of scale, incremental economies of scale on the ground. Remember, when you provide toilets and plumbing, somebody has to make those toilets. Somebody has to make those pipes. Somebody has to be employed at the water pumping stations to ensure the water is going out there. Ayushman Bharat and the digital infrastructure needs employees to do all kinds of things. There's all kinds of ancillary services that's come about because of it. All of this creates economies of scale. And that is where we are at, where we can actually feel proud. One of the things that constantly used to be hurled at us used to be, oh, you come from a country with open defecation. You don't have electricity. You don't have gas. Today, nobody can throw that at you. And you see that pride both at being Hindu and at being Indian. Why? Because nobody can throw these partially. Because nobody can throw these.
Absolutely. I think that was glorified in one of those movies that was released several years ago, which also got an Oscar for the music that was provided by A.R. Rahman, the Slumdog Millionaire. And the idea that the world loves, the West loves, is about showing poverty and grief-stricken people of the country. That sells, because that's exactly how the BBC's and the National Geographic's work. Jayajit, moving, I'm going to again bring this subject that, when a model that is implemented and is successful in a country as large as India, it's a foolproof measure that, the model, if it were to be implemented in any part of Europe or in America or in fact anywhere across the globe, it will not be a difficult procedure to follow. Something similar to what China also does, because we both countries being two countries that have the largest populations of the globe.
Yeah, we are the pioneers in digital public infrastructure, right? We could succeed it in India in spite of all the roadblocks that were thrown at us, in spite of all the drawing room conversations, the Western propaganda of privacy violation, and so on and so forth. And they were fine tuning that we did as part of our culture of having the conversation, having the discussions, taking it to the courts, and courts passing the judgment on Aadhaar, which is now transformative. We are now able to do the direct benefit transfer, putting money in people's accounts because we had Aadhaar. But this was taken up, with a lot of resistance by the Western press, who has got no locus standi on the matter.
Yeah.
But they took it up, and there are people here who mimicked it, who picked up the issue of privacy without understanding what it means in the contextual situation. If somebody is not getting the next meal and they've got no data to talk about except the data that they don't have the next meal, what is the privacy data that we're taking out from them? This was quite ridiculous situation that we faced. But coming to your point, we solved all of that, and therefore we have what is called as a digital public infrastructure, which is Aadhaar, which is UPI, and so on and so forth, which has been transformative for India.
Yeah.
And
it's transformative for the world, because when we bring an argument to the table at the G20 Leader Summit, and that particular argument is not just, the proposal is not just heard, acknowledged, but even, brought into conceptualization and implemented. Whether it is the World Bank, the IMF, because the idea of digital interface, the idea of digital payments will help in a long term for economies which are underdeveloped, to allow for people to prosper, to allow for schemes to reach out to them, for allowing them to direct benefits to reach to them in countries like Africa.
Megha, since I was part of the G20 negotiations for that particular aspect, the focus of one of the countries was just to change the name from DPI, from Digital Public Infrastructure, to something else, so that it is not associated with India. All of those discussions happened, all of those subversions happened, and we have still come on top of it, and we're gifting this to the rest of humanity. It's coming from the 16% of the world's population to the balance 84% of the population. And as you rightly said, if it works here in India, it should work in most of the parts of the world. Obviously, there'll be challenges and there'll be changes, and we should not be so presumptive also, because there'll be network challenges and so on and so forth. But more or less, we've solved a large problem. And therefore, many of the issues that we solved here, we end up solving it for, if not for the advanced economies, at least for the developing economies. And that's a great contribution we're making back to the world. And that is happening on the back of us standing up and saying, we will recognize our problems and we will solve it our way. Let me take a quick example of what happened in 1996 during the Asian financial crisis, when the entire world was telling Mahathir Mohamad, who was heading Malaysia, that please peg your, please let the ringgit go, free float, which was a disastrous situation that was happening. He stepped up and saying that, no, I will peg ringgit, and, you go to wherever you want to go to, I will do this. And Malaysia was the first one which bounced out of the Asian financial crisis, and every other Asian economy then followed suit. Okay. Just underlining the point that we need to solve our problems our way, be it economic, be it technical, be it geotechnical for that matter. These are issues that we will have to solve and then gift it back to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. All right. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, sharing your views on this subject. Stay tuned on NewsX. On the other side, it's rolling coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Varanasi road rally. And we are going to talk about Modi's One India, because that's what is visible on the ground. From Gujaratis to Marathis to Tamil to Bengalis, everybody has come together. Whether it is Muslims, Christians, Jains, Sikhs, they all have come together and are cheering for Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he files his nomination tomorrow for the third time, and praying for his win from Varanasi. Thanks for watching.